It's live. We're doing a show on Herios Gamos, soul merging. Hello, Ariana. Let me put it in the comments. Paste. There we go. Okay. Let me pull it up on here.
You want?
I'm going to pull it up on the phone so I can see. There's comments. Forgets it. That's Ariana. She's in the Zoom room.
Who?
Ariana. Says hi. Okay. Should be coming in now. Here it is. Nope. Not yet. Dang. Dang. Let's see. Damn. There it is. All right. Let me just share it to the page and the group. All right. Okay. So we're going to talk about Herios Gamos and soul merging. And yeah. But I think after that last show, I think it would be a good idea if you talked about how you received the information, for how long, and how that led into you merging with other people. I think that would, so people could understand where you're coming from. No?
Do you mean like just touching shadow work briefly first, or?
No. I mean, like on the last show, you talked about how you came into the intel that you were getting about shadow work. What I mean is, when did you start getting intel on Herios Gamos and your role in anchoring it, into the planet, and how that, came about?
Okay. I believe that it happened for me because I'd been very committed to shadow work, and my understanding of shadow work is that the more of the old programming that we take responsibility for and shift, the more we create a space to be able to bring in and embody more of our higher self, infinite intelligence and frequencies. So it was just a natural progression. I was seeing lots of clients back then. I think it was about 10 years ago. I used to have clients. I had an office as a transpersonal counsellor, was the title. One of my clients came in, a man who was severely addicted to sex. He was married with 3 little girls, and he was having sex about 15 times a day with complete strangers, women from 16 through to 96. He was very concerned that his wife would find out and that he would lose his family. He came in with he came to me for a session. He started talking about that, and it was actually accidental. I happened to be in a relationship with somebody who wouldn't have sex with me, or very rarely. So here he was with a facilitator who was undersexed. Well, not me personally, but the energy, the life that I was living was undersexed. He was oversexed. It actually happened accidentally, and we became one, and we became stuck as one for a 2-week period.
But you became one how? Like energetically, etherically,
energetically,
through the sessions?
It was, well, he just sat opposite me. I actually felt my energy expanding out to him, which is something that I had always done. But he's actually not retaliated, but joined that as well. So the two souls became one. So we had two humans here trying to do a human session, but the two souls were doing their own thing. It wasn't a sexual experience, but I mean, my understanding, and I think this is through empathy, through being a natural empath. I learned this way. We spent the next 2 weeks merged and joined as one being, which was very, very unusual because, you know, I had my life here in my house and he had his life over there. For the first few days, for the first probably 2 days, he was still having this out of control sex with people. Me, this is a bit funny to say, but it's the truth. I was having multiple orgasms up to 100 times a day. Like I got to a point by about the 5th day or whatever, I couldn't even drive to the supermarket. I remember driving to the beach one morning and having to pull over about 8 times, which was a 5-minute drive, to have all these orgasms. I went down to the beach and I was laying on the beach and having multiple orgasms on the beach, like trying to hide that. He was experiencing the opposite. He was experiencing less and less external interest. He was experiencing having all of these new learnings and teachings. At the end of the 2-week period, what happened was I'd had the time of my life, although I couldn't leave the house. I had no physical sex, but my body was experiencing all of that. And at the end of the 2-week period, he knew everything that I knew. He knew all the dimensional stuff that I'd learned for the last 10 years. He knew how to run sessions. At the end of the 2-week period, I think he had about 10 days free of not having sex with anybody else but his wife. I spoke to him 2 or 3 months afterwards again. He still hadn't cheated on his wife. Like, the imbalance in him merged with the imbalance in me. My sex life didn't change at all, but I wasn't meant to. But I had been reminded about the power of sexual energy. We worked up through every chakra. So, you know, I was very quiet and very hidden. You know, that expanded where he was a little bit louder. Like, all of the polarities between him and myself just merged. And we created balance by doing that. And it was faster than anything that I'd ever experienced before. Like, all my shadow work, my communication with higher selves or whatever, merging with another human being created so much incredible balance between the two of us.
So basically, when two souls merge, all chakras basically, they exchange code, energy, consciousness, awareness, knowing, whatever you want to call it. And so this started with you 10, 12 years ago, whatever. And then you had a practice of practicing that.
Yeah, then consciously doing, well, actually, but not, I didn't go out of my way to make it happen,
Yeah.
but there were certain clients, and I had a big clientele from around the world. There were certain clients where there was a door opened and you would do it. And again, I would spend a 2-week period merged as one with these people, and we would exchange energetic information through all the chakras, and so much of the polarities were automatically balancing and zero pointing out.
Now this you were getting direction and guidance from your higher self.
Yeah.
Not only given that information, but also to anchor it,
Yes.
also to bring it in to your own embodiment and you know, whoever you came across, however that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I from that I understood that allowing, and you have to become vulnerable to allow this to happen. I mean, the first one was accidental. The next one was, you know, intentionally allowing my heart to open up to become one with another. From my experience, and I always did it with men. There was one woman I did it with for a 2-week period, which in that 2-week period created. And I think at the time I was late 30s, maybe 40, 41. I actually questioned my own sexuality for that 2-week period, because the love that it happens in the merging with another human being is so powerful. It's mind-blowing. It's beyond, you know, what we've ever known as humans. So as I started working with clients, I would let them know up front. First, it's going to, the doorway seemed to be through the sacral with so many, the majority of people that you merge with. So that elicited all these sexual feelings in the human being that if you bypassed that and allowed it to go up to the next chakra, if you bypass the need to do something that the human would want to do because all these sexual feelings have been elicited within the sacral chakra, if you ignore that and allow it to start moving up through the chakras, and for me at the time it was through a 2-week period, it didn't all ever happen at once. But if you bypass that natural tendency of like, oh my God, I'm sexually aroused, I need to do something about this, and let it just balance out, it will naturally go up to the next chakra. And every chakra that you soul merge with another will automatically balance out your polarity, your own polarities with theirs.
Okay, I had something going on there. Somebody's asking a good question. We'll come to it. Okay, so a lot of people, and this I would say certainly a few years ago when the internet was really coming into its own, people started connecting. You saw a lot of people think they found their twin flame, and the next day they're not. But there was a strong energetic attraction between people as we started to make connection in the highest physical manifestation of the ethers, which is the internet. Would you say that, and obviously some of that, not all of it, but some of that turned into cyber, that turned into strictly the sacral or root, connection. It didn't elevate. But would you say that that was that's when you talk about the expanded love? I mean, it's an energy, it's a force that we're not used to, and the closest thing we can recognize it to is our sensual feelings and sensitivities. But my question is, do you think that a lot of people unconsciously have come across this energy and just not elevated it past the cycle?
Yeah, well, as human beings, I mean, we have been trained to be very attached to our sexual feelings, releases, all that sort of stuff. I have heard of a lot of people doing this, and they do go through the sacral doorway, and then they become attached to the power of that sexual energy that actually ignites their own sexuality, and then they can just keep playing with that. But I guess what I'm saying is, if you move past that human lust, allow the lust to fall away and allow it to actually move up through the chakras, then that's where and every chakra actually gives the human being a different cosmic orgasm, which is far beyond the human orgasm, far beyond the human orgasm. It's almost like a conscious kundalini rises to this level, then the conscious kundalini, which is a joint merged shared thing, and both parties experience like anything that he does, the masculine energy wants or desires to do to her, she can feel it in her body, and vice versa. So once you move past the sacral area and past the lust bit, then you start merging chakras, like let's say, for example, the heart chakra, and he allows himself to let his erection fall away and let the energy move up to the heart chakra, which he's experienced with a feminine. Then he's actually going to really start feeling the levels of universal love that she's always wanted.
This lady asked a question. When you merge, can you pick up the shadow of the other person?
No. I've probably merged with, I don't know, probably about 30 different people. I don't know why. Yes, I do know why. This is such a high frequency experience for the human being. We're actually playing up in dimensions, and up in dimensions, up in those higher frequencies, there is no fear. There is no lack. I mean, there is no shadow. So we're actually consciously playing in Herios Gamos, in the soul merging energy that contains no shadow. So all of everything that you allow yourself to open up your heart, open up to absolute vulnerability, and allow an intentional soul merging, soul to soul meeting with another person, does not contain shadow energy. I have never, ever picked up a lower vibration from anybody else ever doing this.
One of the things I think just to point out in regard to that is when these experiences happen, you can't really fake it or anything. The people are being as vulnerable as they can, and that has a direct relation to the I guess the depth of the merging and everything that comes with it, which I guess like you said on the last show, the word purity. Closer you get to purity, the less likely you're going to have anything like that. But so there's no shadow at all because the hearts are both open.
No, that's not true. You will actually have the physical reaction. You know, we all wanted this. We all wanted love. And the number one thing that we understand love to be, that our body reacts to, is lust. So every time you merge with another person, you're automatically going to go first to the human experience, which is lust. And I think what I'm saying is ignore that lust. Acknowledge it. Say, yes, it's there. My body is reacting to this merging with another person, but I want more than that. And what I want is pure, unconditional love.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and the question being around the shadow, you're not picking up shadow because you're going the other direction.
Yeah, we're actually consciously allowing ourselves to experience the merging. Well, actually, it's almost like a four-way relationship. There's yourself, there's the person that you're with, or that you're on the phone with, or on the other side of it. It doesn't even matter. And there's also the two higher selves that are. The body is reacting to the energy that the higher selves are experiencing.
Yeah. There's another question too, and maybe you can answer it. It's about a specific chakra, but maybe in regard to any chakra. What is the third eye chakra energy transfer like? What is that like? Or I guess I can formulate the question. What is it like to have the merging of two chakras between two people?
Well, I sort of did cover this, but what happens is that everything that I've remembered from ancient wisdom or through my soul self or whatever then gets transferred over to the other. The two third eye chakras merging allows for me to see the other's perspective and him to see my perspective, as well as all the energetic information that I've been collecting over however many years through meditations, through just remembering whatever. That third eye chakra merging is us sharing at a soul level pure consciousness.
Yeah.
Pure consciousness.
A follow-up question on the shadow from Jenna, who posed that first one. She said, well, it was a comment. Maybe I picked up the shadow when the human in me became attached.
If the human becomes attached, it's going to ignite all of one's own shadow. So yes, absolutely. That's where self-responsibility comes in. It's okay, why was I attached to this person? How did this happen? What do I need to do to transform this energy back to pure love or to its highest potential? That's shadow work. That's a whole different conversation. But I absolutely get that, this gift has been put back on the planet around 2012, maybe a little bit before, definitely before. I was doing it before that. But this is a gift of us that's been given back to the planet for those who are interested in what the higher self, the higher frequency, the multidimensional aspects are here to teach us, rather than what the human being, 3D shadowed self. For me, the ego is the wounded child. So, making choices to actually bypass that and connect with the pure God source energy in us.
Yeah.
Is going to override that eventually.
You made the statement to me one time a long time ago, and I said it on the show with Shanine. that this is how we live, love, and learn in other dimensions. Do you think that in this particular realm or dimension, where it's very dense, that it's a process, at least at this time, because of the density and the slowness of it, it takes a while, takes conscious effort, and might take a while. It may not, it may not be instantaneous. That type of.
For me personally, I found, the shadow work that I did, which was very, like really going down the rabbit hole, like really looking at my own stuff. Emptying out the old programming automatically allowed for new programming, which then automatically allowed for this wisdom, this universal intelligence, just to be part of our normal being.
So it is a fast track method in the essential.
For me, it was one of my most fast tracking things that I did. That's secondary. My most fast tracking thing was my own shadow work and the particular instructions I was given to do that. And the second fastest way to do it was by merging with other beings, human beings, dimensional beings, like just merging, allowing them to become one with me.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I don't want to get ahead, but I said this before in another show when we were talking. That we have a sister, a friend who entered a relationship, and she was asking about Herios Gamos and basic. And I know her; she's a very close sister, and I know she connects a lot in the higher dimensions. And I said, well, what do you do when you connect with these entities and essences and consciousnesses? And she said, I merge with them. And I said, it's the same thing. The only difference is that person is walking the earth and you're walking the earth. There's another really good question here from Michelle. And she says, and maybe this will give you an opportunity to explain, do you continue to stay merged with those souls as you go on to merge with others?
Wow, I love that question. The human self wants to say no, but it's actually not true. If there's no attachment in this. By the end of the 2-week period, and I don't think it works that way anymore, but that was my initiation into this. There was such a reverence and such a love for each other that there was no ownership or control or attachment. At the end of the 2-week process, the attachment just disappeared. But occasionally, and not very often, I'll see something from one of them or hear, and the love is so profound and so deep that there is no need to even talk to each other. There's no need of anything. I mean, we actually merged as one, and then you let them go. And I'm currently learning that, through a real life relationship, and we're actually learning how Todd and myself are actually learning. We spent a couple of years doing this almost daily, Todd.
Mm-hmm.
And then we met each other and it was like, okay, how do you actually embody this now and do this, like being together? We have a love, I say often, we're married. The human self says things like, oh, let's be together forever, or, stuff like that, which is what I learned from fairy tales as a young being. But we choose every day. We're together every day that it suits both of us. I don't know. I can't remember if I answered your question. Sorry.
Well, why don't we talk a little bit more about some of the tangible stuff that comes from soul merging. And what I mean by that is, it's like when we first merged, there's a story about you had to give a presentation and vice versa.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk about, that's a good example of how you exchange.
It is a great example. I think we've been merged for about a week at that period. And that was still when I was, there was a 2-week period where you actually just became one with a person. So we merged and we were up to the throat chakra, because every 2 or 3 days we'd merge a different chakra, and we were up to the throat chakra. I was terrified because I've been quiet and hidden and, in the behind the scenes my whole life, and I actually had to give a presentation in front of a class. We just happened to merge 2 days before that at our throat chakras. You were excessively loud. You didn't mind going in front of anyone and saying anything. I was excessively quiet. We merged our throat chakras. 2 days later, I was able to stand in front of a class and give a presentation with zero fear, nervousness, like nothing. For me, it almost felt like I had Todd Medina with me, within me, that could actually just say anything and everything that needed to be said. That was our throat chakra merging. The other thing that happened for me was I automatically started writing poetry, which I had not really done very much of before. But in our throat chakra merging, poetry just became like a very normal thing to do. I think that you had written a lot of poetry. That wasn't for me. So in our throat chakra merging, I birthed this ability, and I can't do it as I want to, but in these sporadic moments when I least expect it, I write poems. But that started from our throat chakra merging, 3.5 years ago.
Yeah. And so, like, if people, because I know it took me a little while to understand all this, even though we were doing what we were doing. But so for people that are just hearing about it now, and that may, let's say, because of the fact that it brings up such strong energetic sensitivities in somebody, which we can really only compare to, our sensual feelings. But once you can kind of get your arms around that, and you can realize that you can actually merge with anyone, how would you recommend people go into something like that?
Yeah, great question. There are so many ways. If you are with somebody, if you're in a relationship and you're with somebody, I would highly recommend sitting cross-legged in front of them. Do not speak, because any need for speech or speaking or communication is from a 3D wounded ego aspect. And this is especially helpful if you're in a relationship and you'll have an argument or a fight or something. Don't speak. Do not say anything. The need to say something is from the wounded ego. Simply sit in front of somebody. Place your hands. She places her hands up like this. He places his hands on top, and you stay in absolute silence and just watch each other and stare at each other. You don't have to say anything at all. All energy, just by doing that, you're setting an intention that the two of you become one. Just by doing that alone, and if you do it in absolute silence and surrender and allow your heart to open up, the two will become one. Before you know it, he will start to receive your information telepathically, and vice versa. All of the energy will be sorted just by this merging as one. This verbal diarrhea that comes out of our mouths that we have to say to each other just ceases, and we stop. We allow our energy to become one, and this seemingly real issue between you disappears. If you're working with somebody, or if you're connecting with somebody, interstate or on the other side of the world, and you set an intention, I'm going to open my heart up to this person. I'm going to merge with them at a soul level. You can do that as well. For me, not in the beginning, but one of the most powerful ways that I used to do it is I would recognize the moment they were vulnerable, and I would ask them, would you mind if I put my hand through dimension and time and on your heart? And that was going to be enough. But really, it's just about the intention. And the only thing that stops us from being conscious all the time is our what? Our mask.
Yeah. So if somebody, let's say two people were like watching this show and they're friends and they said, hey, I don't get it all, but I'd like to give it a shot. And they don't have to be in the same room or anything. Um, would they start like say, okay, let's go to the heart chakra or let's go to the root chakra? Would they need to consciously communicate to each other? Let's go to this chakra and start there and then move up or whatever? Or could they either literally or etherically clasp hands, be quiet, and connect with each other without words and instruction?
Are they in the room or are they just communicating with each other?
Either one.
Well, you're not going to be able to clasp hands if you're not in the same room. But if you're on the phone or if you're on Messenger or if you're on Skype or something like that, silence is the first step. The second step is actually inviting the soul energy to expand out. Just allowing your energy to expand out and then knowing when to stop and holding that space. Because if you're communicating with each other, there's a dual conscious connection and intention. So by allowing yourself, your energy to expand out, to open up and expand out and wait for the other to meet you, those connections are actually going to happen predominantly through the heart chakra, especially with a friend, especially with a friend. And just by sitting in front of each other or on the phone or internet or just messaging, just setting your intention to open yourself completely up to the other and waiting for the other to meet you.
And so when they talked about or had the question earlier in the comment about shadows, not as a direct result of the merging in regard to shadows, but indirectly, this sounds like this is an elevation tool. Would it be possible or could you expect for shadows to then show themselves to you because you've elevated to a higher level?
Well, I didn't have that experience, but I had done years and years and years of shadow work.
But I mean, it's like sometimes, for instance, like you said, we're merging all the time. We're just not conscious of it.
Yeah.
Like, so a lot of people have experienced as they elevate, they might walk into a certain situation with family or with friends or whatever. And there's somewhat of a pattern that people start to act out. You know what I mean? Is that possible? Does that happen when we elevate, that we start to see other shadows that we're, say, resisting as a result of the work?
There are two different paradigms that you're playing in. If you go to like a Christmas function of a family that are all still asleep, and you went up to a mother or an uncle or a father or a brother or a sister, whatever, who was unconscious and said, can we just sit here, palm to palm, let's not say anything at all, and that's just through the eye connection, allow this soul merging to occur, that's going to be very difficult. But if you're talking to a conscious person on the other side of the world or a partner who's conscious who actually wants what you want, and you both have that same intention, with two parties being totally conscious, you're going to create that experience.
Yeah.
You can't force anything on anyone. So, going to a family Christmas function is going to be a whole different experience than allowing yourself to merge with awakening souls.
Can you merge with someone without them knowing?
Yes, absolutely you can. I prefer not to. I've never ever liked to do that. I prefer everything to be conscious and embodied and fully conscious between two human beings. I'm having problems with my daughter at the moment. She's not very happy with me since I married you and picked you instead of staying in Australia with her. I could bring her soul up and merge with that, but I'm not a fan of doing that. And I do understand that we're not allowed to do anything that we're not allowed to do. But the power in this, for me, the power in this work is in full consciousness. If you've got yourself or another human being, both of you in doing this stuff intentionally, full conscious, then everything's possible.
Here's a question. I had a question, but here's one from Valerie Peterman. Morgan, did you move the energy through the chakras in a torsion field spiral? When I was with the physical partner, I would connect all the chakras and then the colors would spiral through my body.
Yes, we can do that. Do I do that? No, I don't, because there's coding and data from both of you. So for me to remain in absolute trust and vulnerability, I actually purposely try not try. I set the intention that I'm not going to do anything to control this in any way, shape or form. I set myself up to allow the flow for whatever is.
So if you had two people that were connected already, like I'm actually thinking of two friends of mine. They're both men. They're very tight. They have like you can see their kindredness. If you had a friend like that, and hopefully everybody has at least one somewhere these days in the world, you could go into a merging session, if you will, with them, because the hearts are open. There's if they've got a good resonance, there's not a lot of BS or stuff hidden. I mean, would that be a good place to start? It's because I guess what I'm saying too, there's not necessarily a romantic connection with Herios Gamos, or is there? Or let's say with merging.
No, there's not necessarily a romantic connection. The human mind is so behind in this that the minute it happens, human beings aren't used to feeling this level of love. I've been able to merge with a lot of men because they didn't mind actually becoming one with a woman. If you, Tom Bear, that's a great, if you rang Tom Bear up and said, we're close, we're brothers, let's merge, there would be some resistance because it elicits, it brings up every aspect of human ideas of love. And the first thing is sexuality. I mean, imagine merging with Tom and having all of these orgasms, like energetic orgasms, through all of your chakras with Tom. I believe that men will be doing this with each other at some point. You actually should be merging with other women, because every woman that you merge with is going to fast track you and expand you and bring more balance into your being every time you merge with them. It's a very, very vulnerable thing for men to do because they've got to open their hearts. Women, I merged with a woman, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years ago. And I actually had like a 2 or 3 month period where I questioned my own sexuality. There's not a lot of men that are going to be prepared to do. It will elicit every human feeling, thoughts, emotions that come with the energy of falling in love. But we're playing in this Herios Gamos with the highest levels of love. I'm not surprised at all that it triggers sexuality. I was told many, many years ago that there are 5 energies of pure universal love. One was divine feminine, divine masculine, sacred sexuality, Christ consciousness, and pure love. There's not many men that are going to want to experience those 5 energies with another man.
Anna Thomas, my friend, she asked a question. Is embodiment of archetypes necessary for this level of merging? And I guess another way to put it would be, is a certain level of shadow work necessary before you can get to this level of merging?
I don't know. I was lucky enough to have done quite a few years of a lot of shadow work, and I think maybe that's why I just, this is our what, Todd? You're good with these words. This is our gift. This is who we are. This is our sovereignty. We merge all day, every day with everybody. It's the consciousness that actually does the embodiment that changes everything again.
Well, I think another example too is like with the show Soul Speaks 5D, when you told me after a while to pull up the higher self of the other person, and basically I would merge with them. you know, merge intention, merge the heart, and so on. And then the experiences became less, well, they leveled off, they balanced. I didn't have good shows, bad shows, good shows, bad shows, which was obviously rooted in my own, you know, from my own position. So that's another example, you know, what I did with the show.
Yeah.
Let's see. And Anna's saying she's asking that thing about the archetypes because she's read that Herios Gamos conceptually is a somewhat ritualistic play of the gods.
Herios Gamos is, and you can do any research on Herios Gamos, and you know there are a whole different bunch of perspectives, but all of them are basically saying at the bottom line, it's a dance between gods and goddesses in dimension. And gods and gods, or goddesses and goddesses. It is our souls dancing. You know, every time in the beginning when I was merging with you or any other, I would see the two energies. It looked like they were dancing, and then they would dance more and more, and then they'd actually become an energetic ball of one. Archetypes. I really like this. We do have our archetypes, and do we need to go and find out what all of our archetypes are, or do we just need to set the intention of bringing all aspects or all of those archetypes directly into the heart and inviting those archetypes to merge with us as one? No different than, you know, with guides or higher selves or whatever. Anything that we allow ourselves to merge with is going to expand us and the other.
There's another question here from April Katz. Anna says, thank you, that makes perfect sense. She says, April says, can it cause a switch in them both between divine feminine and divine masculine?
Yes, absolutely it can. Everybody that you allow yourself to consciously merge with will expand first you and also them. The level of love bypasses the whole conditional human level of love. Most of the men that I merged with before I met Todd, every single one of them, not most of them, every single one of them went on to have better relationships, new relationships, marriage, babies. Like they really expanded, and every single one that I merged with was automatically capable of doing everything that I did, knew everything that I knew. It was like an energetic exchange of information that went through every chakra that expanded each one of us every time it was done.
Another thing too that helped me understand it is you said, this is getting into sacred sexuality a little bit, but I think energetically it follows the same flow, but it's a non-romantic situation. And you said, like in tantric, they work from the physical up into the ethers, where this is actually from the ethers down into the physical.
Yeah, I haven't actually studied tantra, but the little bits that I've read about it, my understanding of it is if you practice yin yang, if you practice this, if you practice that, you're going to become one with the God self, with higher intelligence. For me, I feel very much like we've learned all of this up in the dimensions, and we're actually at a point now that we're actually embodying it and understanding and working out how does this work down in the physical at the embodied state. You know, what did Todd and Morgan do now that we're actually together? Because we don't need to go out in dimension anymore. How do we actually do this at a physical level?
Yeah, but that gets into because I think there is a distinction between soul merging. I mean, you can have soul merging Herios Gamos romantically or not, right? I mean, I know that's kind of a hard thing to get our arms around, but what I'm saying is that that's kind of getting into sacred sexuality between two people, you know.
Well, it does. It automatically, you know, when you've spent all this time merging in dimensions with somebody and then you meet up with them at a physical level, then it's like, okay, how are we going to do this? And we discovered very early on in the day, you know, if there was something uncomfortable between us, we did better by not talking, because the talking is oh, the mind has to make you understand something. The mind has to make you hear something. The mind has to make you think my way. By not talking and actually just connecting and looking into each other's eyes, we automatically went into that soul merging.
Yeah.
And then we've gone way beyond that now, where we're actually learning how do you bring this whole concept of soul merging into the physical reality. So when we're together, we quite often see what our souls are doing in dimension and try to emulate that down here. And in actual fact, most of the time we don't have to emulate it into the physical realm. We are able now to have our bodies experience what the two souls are actually doing together without having to be physical.
Yeah. And so, like for, and again, non-romantically, for people who want to expand and fast track, they can, let's say, for instance, they have a close enough relationship and they have some type of, conflict or disagreement or whatever, that they could actually take this atypical process, and if they were with each other, sit in front of each other on camera in the same room, and actually be in silence and connect, even though there's a physical aspect involved, connect etherically to solve the issue without discussing it.
Yeah, no discussion at all. Not hold hands, but touch palms. The palms might move and probably will need to move. Just staring at each other and doing this with each other, no words at all, because the words are a 3D human thing to do. The less words, the better. No words is even better, but just actually connecting and intentionally allowing the two souls to merge will actually shift all imbalance.
It sounds like one of the prerequisites to being able to merge with somebody consciously and expand would be to be able to look at that person or hold that person's image in front of you without judgment, totally open to, with no defense up at all. I mean, that would seem you'd have to be able to do that if there was, like, say you were upset with somebody and you sat down with them and all you could do is look at them and go, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. I can't believe they did that. You're not going to be able to merge that way, right?
Yes, because it doesn't matter that even though all that human 3D judgment or resistance or attachment or projection or whatever is going on, the fact that you've agreed to keep your mouth shut allows for a soul connection from eye to eye, from palm to palm, to actually undo all of that. So if you sat there for just 3 minutes, more is better, but just 3 minutes in absolute silence, the mind will start up with, all of that rubbish, all of that judgment. But at some point it will shut down, the soul merging, the soul connection will happen, and all of the discrepancy will actually balance itself out just by doing that. I say 3 minutes. If you can sit there like that with somebody for longer, and then at some point allow your energetic field to open up and bring them in to your field, which is into your heart, everything can be fixed. Basically, you just remember the love that you are. The trickiest thing is that, and probably not in those circumstances, if you sit there starting because there's a problem, but it's such a powerful love that the human body will go straight away, oh my God, I'm reacting sexually to this, or I'm reacting in a loving way, or I'm so in love with this person, we need to get married, we need to move to the same country. If you can just remind yourself all of that stories, I've never experienced such a profound, high frequency level of love that the human mind doesn't know how to interpret this.
If somebody asks you, because a lot of energy practitioners talk about getting in front of the client, either on Zoom or camera or in person, and they open up their field to that person like you're describing. If you had to explain to somebody how to open up their field, if they had some kind of block or something,
it's easy.
How would you
Everyone
describe
can
it?
do it right now. If you just sit here quietly and invite your whole field to expand out from the heart way beyond the human skin, way beyond the human body, way beyond even this room, to really just allow your energetic signature to open up to its most vulnerable, to its most powerful, to its most loving state, then anyone that wants to step into that field, whether they're in this room or on the other side of the world, can actually connect with you. Now, if they're doing it consciously and you're doing that consciously, the connection becomes an embodied state of being, and the love that you feel for each other is incredible.
Would you say that the origin of that, I mean, in human terms, this is in human terms, not esoteric or higher terms, would you say that the imagination, that the intention and the imagination is the force that creates that?
You could say that, but if I invite you now to expand your energetic field out, do you need imagination for that, or can you actually feel and sense and see that actually happening?
I don't know. That's I don't know if that's two different things for me. You weren't supposed to ask me a question. The reason I was saying that is because I always think back to when I first got on to social media 2-3 years before I met you, and my own experiences. And a couple of those experiences involved healing. And I've never considered myself a healer, but in both cases, there was an immediate healing that I guess at that time I thought was me. I understand things differently now, but I was solicited, I was asked, everything was in alignment. I projected my field or my force or my intention or my imagination, whatever it is, and something happened. So I guess what I'm saying is that I know for a lot of people, sometimes they struggle with, how do I connect to my higher self? How do I expand my energy field? I mean, I'm just trying to put it like in layman's terms. Would you say it's kind of like the imagination, intuition, everything together, or you know what I mean?
Imagination. I guess imagination works in two ways. If I invite you to expand your field now, so you take me into your field, can you see that?
Yes.
Is that your imagination, or is that your
I don't know.
translation of energy that you're actually reading?
I don't know. Because if I think about the first time you told me to pull up my higher self, I didn't have to use my imagination. I just looked and he was there.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
I think it's
I don't think it's imagination. I actually think it's our third sight. And when we bypass, I can't do that. And if I just say to you, bring up your higher self or bring up your child self, then the majority of people can very, very quickly bring up that future self or child self or higher self. Is that our imagination, or is that us just going, I'm not going to buy into the restrictions of 3D sight. If somebody invites me to bring up my inner child, I can instantly see that inner child. If somebody invites me to expand my field to share with another, then that's an automatic thing.
Here's another one. I don't know if we can get to the specific of it, knowing you, but I think in general terms you're probably going to be able to answer it. Geraldine says, can you discuss any carryovers from Atlantis in our time? My partner and I have a connection from there, and it bleeds over for me in this union.
For me, everything that I see, for me, my number one language is energy. If I have a connection to Atlantis, if I've had a dream and a symbol comes up, I, in any point, in any moment of time, will invite that energy to come before me, and I will have a conversation with it. If you feel a connection with Atlantis, if it was me, I would bring up the energy of Atlantis or a symbol from Atlantis or the being that I was from Atlantis and have a conversation, a full-on conversation. What do you want me to know? What are you doing here? Why do I keep feeling this? Like, I would ask all the questions, like I would ask a question of anybody. I don't think anyone can answer those questions for you except yourself. So if you feel like you have a layover from Atlantis that is still active, I'd bring up a symbol or a being or the energy of that and have a conversation with that myself.
Mm. Well, yeah, and then in her case, she's got two people involved. But again, you go back to maybe you're better off just sitting in front of each other, clasping hands and being quiet.
Well, it depends. I mean, if there's an issue there and if you think they're another Atlantean being, but for me, I would actually bring up those beings in dimension first and have a conversation with them first. Because there might be a polarity or some sort of imbalance there that you can actually do by yourself.
Now, if two people decided they wanted to attempt to merge Herios Gamos and they were in the same room, just to restate it, okay? Like, how do you get there? Do you say, hey, let's merge, or is it all intuitive? Is it all in silence?
It's actually a little bit of both,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a fine line between saying to somebody up front, do you want to merge tonight, if you haven't done it before, compared to recognizing when somebody's heart is open and they're vulnerable.
Mm.
When they're sharing their deepest stuff with you, their heart is open, it's vulnerable. That's the point that I would usually say to somebody. I would recognize their whole heart is open to me. They've opened up their field to me. They actually want to connect with me. And I would say, well, to you at that time, how do you feel about me touching your heart? Now, I was in Australia and you're in America, but I knew there was no time or space. So I knew if you said yes, that I could absolutely put my hand out and touch your heart and connect with you. Instantaneously, when I did that, if you said yes, I would then see your soul and my soul standing in front of each other in dimension and let them take over. And so many of those calls or experiences, we would spend 10 minutes to 30 minutes to an hour in silence, and both of us tuned in and connected to what our higher selves were doing with each other.
On the phone.
On the phone.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. We never did a camera thing for a year and a half. Okay, so we got like 2-3 minutes left. So, like, okay, somebody watched this show or watches it on the replay and has an interest in doing this, in pursuing this, where would you suggest they start?
Oh, that's a tricky question.
Mm.
I think I would suggest that they first start off in sitting, excuse me, quietly by themselves and experimenting with consciously allowing their whole energetic signature to expand. Can I stretch that out past my bed? Can I now stretch it out past the wall? How far past the wall can I go? Can I stretch it out to the street? To actually start playing with their own soul that is far, far more and beyond what the human thinks that it is. If I was talking to somebody and somebody was sharing their deepest, darkest secret, we can feel when somebody's really opening up and being really vulnerable and their heart is really open. Then maybe saying to them, how do you feel about us actually connecting and merging? How do you feel about seeing what happens if we merge and allowing all of our chakras to merge one by one as well? To actually start getting comfortable with feeling the energy of self beyond the skin, I think would be my first step. Secondary to becoming passionate and committed to my own shadow stuff.
Yeah. And what about the effectiveness or lack thereof? I mean, does it come after two incarnated beings merge? Do you need to do that first? What I'm trying to say is, if a person is on their own, watch the show or the replay, and wants to start delving into this, could they attempt to merge with non-physical and or animals, elementals, that type of thing?
Absolutely. I haven't merged with a whole lot of deities or things like that. And if I did, I would always ask, are you of the light? Because I've never believed in this, but there's so many people talking about it, and it sort of touches me. If you want to merge with an external energy, I would ask a question to make sure that this is for my highest good, or are you of the light, or something. Animals, I would always merge with animals. I would always merge with another human being.
Gaia.
Trees, dogs, cats, animals. Definitely. I merged with a horse 2 or 3 months ago, which was phenomenal.
Yeah. Anything else? No more questions.
I guess that's it then.
1 hour and 16 minutes. Any questions? I'll wait 30 seconds. Because there's a lag. I think we're good.
The merging happens automatically. We do it all day, every day with people. Once we take responsibility for what we can do and start consciously doing it, then everything changes again. Unfortunately, the human, through their own masks and their own identities, think, well, I don't want anyone else to know this about me or whatever, but, their stuff is the same. Their stuff is the same.
Yeah.
It might have a different story, but it's the same energy, whether it's one spectrum or to the other spectrum. The best thing about merging is that you feel each other's senses, you feel each other's skin, you can feel each other's emotions and feelings and fears and thoughts and all of it. And accepting all of that as a polarity to yourself is such an incredible gift.
Very good. Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Thank you.